everybody, I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and in today's video, we're talking about the Yankees potentially being the top candidates for Marcus Stroman. Now, Jon Morosi is reporting on MLB Network right now that the Yankees are the top candidates and that the Yankees and Marcus Stroman is the most likely outcome. Now, again, this is Jon Morosi. Jon Morosi has been duped before, obviously the whole Shohei Ohtani thing. This isn't to say that he's not a credible reporter. I can't speak on his credibility, but just to say that off-season reporting this winter has been a little shoddy. Agents have done a much better job of throwing smoke screens out there. False information and stuff like that has been aplenty. But looking at Marcus Stroman's fit and his profile, look, he is a solid starting pitcher. Like, I can't sit here and deny that. He is somebody who has consistently made the teams he's played on better in terms of on-field performance. When you look at his ERA this past season with the Chicago Cubs, he had a 3.95 ERA across 136 and two-third innings, went 10-9, had a 20.7% strikeout rate, career high 9% walk rate, but a 57.1% ground ball rate. That's up nearly 6% from the year prior. His FIP got better from last year. His xFIP got better from last year in terms of park adjusted metrics. Obviously, the raw numbers were a little bit worse, but scoring was higher this year, so we have to adjust for that. His barrel percentage dropped to 5%, so he's not allowing as much damage contact in the air, or it's mostly on the ground, which is usually harmless. But ultimately, Marcus Stroman is a pitcher who is solid. Like, he is a solid starting pitcher. Is he an ace? No. Does he have the upside of an ace? No. Does he have the upside of number 2 or number 3? For sure. Like, he profiles as a pretty solid number 3 starter in this league. The run prevention metrics suggest that. Everything in his profile kind of suggests that as well. He's a weird pitcher because he is a ground ball pitcher, but he has an array of different pitches. He has a sinker, a slurve, a cutter, a four-seamer, a splitter, and a slider. And if you look at Stuff Plus, he has multiple pitches that hover around the average or well above. His weirdest pitch is probably his four-seam fastball because he releases it from a really low slot. And he's a shorter guy. Like, he's shorter than myself. I'm 5'8", he's 5'7". So his release height is really low, and it kind of allows that four-seamer to play up a little bit. There's a reason why it had a 32% whiff rate and didn't allow much damage contact this past season. But the usage of his secondary is going to be important for him because he did not use his secondaries a lot down the stretch. He had an ERA north of 8 after the All-Star break. And he had dealt with injuries, shoulder stuff, a bunch of different things that obviously raised concerns. There are some things that you have to like as well. Obviously, the ground ball rates, the ability to pitch enough innings to get you through a season. And then in terms of other concerns, the off-field concerns are definitely there in terms of, his presence on social media. I'm not saying the blocking of fans. I don't really care about that stuff. You want to go and attack fans on social media? You can use social media however you want. If fans are going to boo, I think athletes have a right to clap back, but this isn't a matter of clapping back. This is a matter of, liking some stuff on social media that is definitely detrimental to one's character. Obviously, I know that people are like, these are professionals, they're players, we're paying them to be players, or by we, I mean the Yankees would be paying them for their performance on the field, but just like with any job, a background check is important, and just like with any job, doing things like liking, clearly anti-Semitic rhetoric would be a red flag, right? Like, you would clearly have, if you went through a background check, for any job, like, they would look at that and they would ask you about it, and they would ask you why you reached that conclusion. Do you still harbor those same feelings? Have you matured since that time? These are all questions that any organization should realistically be asking. Like, I understand that people don't want to hear that. I understand that's something that can be unpopular to say and unpopular to hear. But ultimately, like, that's the reality of the real world, right? Like, background checks, stuff of that nature, they're all important to a team's analysis and an employer's analysis of how, hireable you are, whether they want to bring you in or not. And look, I think the Yankees have done their background checks. I think they've done their legwork. I think they've done their homework if there is rumored interest. And ultimately, I think there's something to gain of value here. I do think that Marcus Stroman is a solid starting pitcher. I just have a lot of concerns about the off-field stuff, and I have concerns that we'll have to deal with that, and we'll have too many headlines. But, the concern I really have is it'll be the middle of August. He's struggling. The Yankees aren't doing too well, and he's liking tweets from, people saying, why did Aaron Boone pull him so early, or whatever it may be. And, you don't want to deal with those headlines in the middle of the season. Now, is he capable of not presenting a distraction? Absolutely. He's more than capable of that. Like, I think anybody is capable of not being a distraction. Obviously Josh Johnson had the incident with Tim Anderson in 2022, and it didn't really negatively affect the clubhouse as much. It wasn't like stories came out that the Yankees detested him as a person, or that in that clubhouse, that Josh Donaldson was well hated, or that broke the clubhouse. The team played really well in June and pretty well in July until like around the All-Star break. And they played well in September. So I wouldn't necessarily sit here and say that the Yankees are a team that can't harbor or can't, withstand some controversial or questionable characters. But ultimately, you do want to ask, you do want to double check it. And if you're the Yankees, you have to do your legwork here, which I think they did. But kind of looking at what he would get financially, like what is a Marcus Stroman contract looking like? I think it would be a short-term deal. He is entering his age 33 season. He'll turn 33 on May 1st. I personally don't believe the New York Yankees are going to be in the market of giving him like a 4-year deal. Maybe it'll be a deal where they can get out of the contract after 2 years, or he can get out of the contract in 2 years. Looking at in terms of what Fangraphs believe he'll get, they believe he'll get a 3-year, $66 million deal. And, I don't think that's terribly inaccurate. I think 2 years, $22 million a year is a little more better for what we're seeing here. I think the fact that he hasn't garnered much interest on this market is definitely telling. I think something similar to the Lucas Giolito deal would be ideal for the Yankees, like something with incentives, something where there's an extra year, whatever it may be. Now, the difference is that Lucas Giolito is a guy who, is more durable, but doesn't have the same consistent year-to-year performance that Stroman has had over the last few years, and he's also a little bit younger, so you feel more comfortable giving Giolito, a multi-year contract. But at the same time, like, Stroman clearly has more market value. Stroman projects to be the better pitcher. Stroman was the better pitcher this past season. There's no denying that. And in Marcus Stroman's situation right now, this next year is actually pretty huge for them, because not only can he continue to rebuild his market value and try to maybe hit the market again at 34, 35 and get another contract, but this upcoming season, if he pitches through the entire year, he'll register his 10th year of Major League service, which is a huge milestone. If you know anybody who knows who's in the game and has skin in the game, or any guys who played baseball, that 10th year of service time is huge. You get a lot of post-playing benefits, so this is a huge year for him. I know that there are concerns about, whether he'll continue to age gracefully with his size. Like, he is a smaller guy, literally. And at a smaller height, do you wonder how his body's going to hold up? That is a concern. That is a question. But I'm sure, again, that the Yankees are doing their homework in that regard. And look, every pitcher on this market is a risk. Every pitcher on this market comes with some inherent risk. There is some sort of downfall to everybody here. In Jordan Montgomery's case, right, it's that whole idea that this is really his first dominant year as a starting pitcher. Is he worth a 9-figure deal? Is he worth a deal that's going to maybe rival the Carlos Rodon one or exceed the Aaron Nola one, right? In the case of Shota Imanaga, right, like, we obviously knew the fly balls were an issue. Obviously, he signed with the Cubs, but that is a question that the Yankees had to ask themselves, and it seemed that was enough for them to say, all right, we probably shouldn't sign Shota Imanaga, even though he's only making about $15 million a year. Guys like Lucas Giolito, as I mentioned earlier, right? Like, he hasn't been good in 2 years. So there are obviously questions about how he'll perform the year after. James Paxton has an extensive injury history. Blake Snell has historically been a guy who, not to say that he's not consistent, because he has a pretty good track record in his career of being an elite caliber player. But we've seen the highs and we've seen the lows, and we've seen, sometimes he can't give you 130, 140, 150 innings. And that's obviously a concern. So you have to ask whether he's worth the 6 to 7 years. Other pitchers on this market, like Lance Lynn, like, he's old and he had a down year. Frankie Montas came off of shoulder surgery. Guys like Seth Lugo, like, he's 34. Kyle Gibson's never really had high upside. Sean Manaea, right? Like, how is he going to translate to a ballpark like in New York, coming from San Francisco? There were obviously a lot of questions with a lot of pitchers on this market, and not that Stroman has less questions than anybody else, but he definitely presents enough of a high floor and enough of a certainty for the Yankees to have interest and for the interest to make sense. And ultimately, I think the New York Yankees would certainly benefit from adding him in terms of just pure, like, roster value, like, just straight up looking at, all right, what is his WAR going to be? What is the ERA going to be? What is the FIP going to be? But I do have concerns about some of the off-field stuff. I think those are fair concerns. I think any Yankee fan would tell you, like, yeah, that's a fair concern. It's a thing that has happened in New York too, like when he went to the Mets and when he left the Mets, he was very critical of the organization leaving. I'm not sitting here and saying that the Mets were a perfectly well-run organization, that they're a well-oiled machine. There's a reason why they fired their GM multiple times and why they had to keep hiring new guys. But right now they have more stability than they've had in years past. It's not like a shot at like David Stearns or Steve Cohen or whatever it may be. But I'm not saying it's, but I am saying that even if an organization isn't perfect, it doesn't look great to publicly kind of criticize them, publicly criticize fans in New York, go after Brian Cashman publicly as well. I get it. Brian Cashman said he would have used him as a reliever, and whether that's a fair comment or not, we can sit here and say that, Marcus Stroman has every right to respond, and I would agree. Like, that's fine to say, and that's fair to say. But ultimately, I just don't believe that, that Marcus Stroman doesn't come without warts. Like, I just think that there are existent warts, and we should have the ability to talk about that and sit here and have an honest conversation about it. So, ultimately, I didn't think he'd ever want to come to the Yankees. I didn't think the Yankees would really have an interest in him, but I've been wrong twice in that regard. And hey, look, I'm not a reporter. I don't have sources. A lot of it is speculation. A lot of it is kind of just reading the tea leaves and reading other people's reports. Obviously, Bob Nightingale over the weekend said the Yankees would have no interest. And that ended up not necessarily being true because the day after he mentioned mutual interest. So I'm definitely concerned I'm definitely interested to see how that saga plays out. Maybe the Yankees are being used as leverage. Who knows? But with that being said, the New York Yankees are interested in Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman seems to have an interest in playing in New York, and we'll see how that plays out. But if you guys are curious and interested to see what other stuff we've got going on and any news with the Yankees, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you guys want Marcus Stroman on the Yankees. We want your guys' opinion. We want your guys' takes. And with that being said, we appreciate you guys sticking through for the entire video. I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees. You guys can check out EmpireSportsMedia.com for our written content. For other social media platforms for Fireside Yankees, you can check out our TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page, and our Twitter as well. And with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everyone. Peace out.